Everyone. Morning, Kate. Thank you for joining us. Wait, I think you're there. No audio, or no video, rather. There you are.
Yep.
Thank you.
Morning.
Sorry about the delay. We had some technical issues that we're working through here. So, anyways, at this point, I'd like to call the meeting to order. And prior to today's meeting, the board met in closed sessions to review and discuss matters that, in their opinion, fell under Section 35, Item 4 of the Police Services Act, and as per the Owen Sound Police Services Board bylaw number 2019-01, Section 19.1 closed items. Moving on to item number 2, if I could have a motion to approve the agenda. Joe, thank you. Seconder? John, thank you. All in favor? Carry. Any declaration of conflict of interest arising out of the minutes and matters listed on the agenda? Hearing none. There's no presentations, applications, or public questions at this point in time. Confirmation of the minutes from the public meeting held June 22nd, 2022. If I could have a motion for that, please. John, thank you. Seconder, Garth, thank you. All in favor? Carry. Is there any business arising out of the public session meetings of June 22nd, 2022? Hearing none. Moving on to item number 7, correspondence received. We have 4 items that were sent in by citizens complimenting the service. One was thanking the service for being present at the Emancipation Festival, and 3 compliments from private individuals. First one, complimenting the service on foot patrols that they've seen downtown. The second one was regarding complimenting 2 officers for their patience and kindness with a person experiencing a mental health issue. And third, from a person who had been experiencing a mental health issue themselves, and complimenting the 2 officers on their kindness and compassion in their dealings with him. So it was pretty well, pretty complimentary, everyone. And I think it goes a long way with having some of our officers trained in dealing with mental health issues. It's showing the benefits of it. Under Chairman's report, just a couple of quick items. I was at the Zone 5 OAPSB meeting held on September 13th, and we heard from Dwayne Spag, a representative from the inspectorate, and also from Lisa Darling, the new executive director for the OAPSB. Moving on to, there's a labor conference coming up. The OAPSB is presenting their labor conference on November 9th and 10th. This conference is designed for Section 31 Police Service Board members and staff, which we are one, and also for HR and labor relations staff and bargaining staff and advisors. If anyone wishes to go, the deadline date for registration is October 6th. And if you wish to attend, let Kayla know, and she'll look after your registration for you. And there's probably there's a special discount too that's been provided for hotel rooms that night. Moving on to item number 9, reports from Inspector Fisher.
Thank you, Board Chair. We do have literally 3 months of material to go through, so I'm going to go through this fairly quickly. Interest of time. If anybody has any questions, please just jump in at any point. Starting off with the June report for the CID and Drug Enforcement Unit. The staffing rate at the start of June, somebody stabbed in the neck, they survived. Charges were laid, and the individual was charged with a number of offenses listed on there as a result. We had fraud that came forward to us that was basically an allegation of fraud regarding about $30,000 investment into the hairdressing business. CID looked at it at the end of the day. It effectively ended up as a civil matter. It's been referred over to civil court to recover costs related to that. The OSPSB support program has referred over to us a $27,000 fraud from a vulnerable person. Next month's report that will cover off as a follow-up to that in relation to gentleman basically being defrauded of his check after his wife passed away. There's a child pornography investigation. Support worker referred a young female client to us. There was some reluctance to report on that, so the report was being filled with the victim, and again, we'll have to follow up to that. Also back in June, we had a number of wrench incidents happening up at the Agricultural Society Partners in Victoria Park. We activated our CID core unit for that, and they actually used some of the covert camera devices that we obtained on the grant a year or two ago. It's given us a whole different option for dealing with some of these things. Several youths were identified and dealt with through that. On the scene they reported to, they were referred over to the YMCA alternative program, and it's been dealt with in that matter. Just down on the follow-up section, you'll see that we still continue to work fairly regularly on the homicide file. We had however long ago that was, we dealt with the OPP. It's creating a lot of work for us. The preliminary hearing for that is on pretty much all this week, so we're obviously tied up on that yet again. The listings there for the MHART statistics and the rest of the stuff is for information only. We had no overdoses for that month. Questions? I'll move on to July. So we dealt with a historic sexual assault allegation from a 92-year-old female resident of Lee Manor. It was an allegation regarding a historic allegation regarding a physician who's since retired. Says ongoing. That was later determined to be unsubstantiated. Sexual assault or sexual interference investigation regarding a 15-year-old female, 28-year-old male. Investigation is ongoing with that. One item here that did make the news: we have a 38-year-old female drove a car into Georgian Bay on July 21st. We ended up with the underwater search and recovery team here and spent most of the day recovering. Child pornography investigation involving two young females aged 12 and 13 years, which was essentially a luring over the internet event. Making attempts to identify the male male. I'm thinking of here, I believe it was out of the country, so there's some difficulties with it. So when we move on to the follow-up section there, you'll see with the one that we talked about with ESP, 48-year-old female arrested in charge of several criminal offenses in regards to that $27,000 ESP. With respect to the child pornography investigation, the reluctant witness said he was able to consent on all the victim's phone. That investigation continues. Again, we have unheard statistics, training meetings. Through that month of July, actually, as the chief mentioned, we had a fairly significant hiring spree. We generally use our CIB officers for background investigations. So we're two recruits and our experienced officer dealt with CIB. Those do take a fair amount of time. And as of the end of July, again, no more those have remained at 3. So unfortunately, August was not a good month for us. So as I move on to August, sexual assault, 16-year-old male, sexually assaulted by a 62-year-old male down at the East Harbor Wall, arrest and bail hearing in regards to that. Detective Sergeant Baker is dealing with the Office of the Independent Police Review Director complaint regarding a historic March 2020 allegation. We had a referral that came to us from Germany, which regarded an international drug case. Somebody in the Netherlands was arrested, mailing parcels all over the place. One of those locations for a destination. So that was referred over to our drug intelligence unit for some information. 45-year-old female sexually assaulted by 57-year-old male in rooming house, charges bail hearing in that case. We are working on a cybertips.ca referral for an online murder of a 12-year-old female by a male believed to be living in the United States. We had a provincial animal welfare services officer threatened by someone who was up at the health services dealing with some mental health voluntary issues. The accused was arrested on a warrant for death threats, production order is currently in the works in order to get those medical records to assist in the support of the charge. Sudden death on August 25th. Police chemist fire, 36-year-old male found unresponsive on the bench on the Metro. Evidence of drug use at the scene. It's believed to be looking like many toxicology, but that likely was an overdose death. Not on these reports because it probably was very start of September. We've had another one since, so we've added 2 more in there. We're still way below where we were last year. We ended last year with 14. So now heading into October with 5. I'm not sure why. We're quite happy that that seems to be the case of trending. I think somewhere down the road, someone will likely do a study to see what the COVID impacts were on, because it's not just on town, it seems to be across the board. That was we saw a very large spike in overdose deaths throughout the basically 2 COVID years. Weapons call. Was basically a report to us that all knives people during custody dispute that was determined to be unfounded. Dealt with a medical natural causes sudden death as well, 76-year-old. So as I mentioned, that brings us up to in September. You'll see that we're now at 5. By the end of August, we were at 4 for overdose deaths. So that's a very quick summary of being drugs over the summer.
Inspector, is that trend reduction in the number of overdose deaths mirrored provincially?
Yes.
Is that okay? So that
Yeah, there was a report out that I shared with public health not too long ago, but essentially that is the trend that we're seeing. There was a very large spike through 2020, 2021 that pretty much everybody saw. Now they're starting to see the numbers come down.
I hear you.
A lot of speculation as to what might cause that. Everything from the certain payments help with the spike. It was at the so a lot of the public health departments just staffing had to pretty much completely cut back all of their harm reduction. And all of those people were put into contact tracing through COVID. So a lot of that really shut down. And you're dealing with the whole for a lot of that population, the places where they congregate, the shares programs, all that sort of thing shut down.
Good
So
news.
they're isolated. Yeah, it's probably somebody with a lot more letters than me that will figure it out someday. But it probably will be a really interesting study just to see what caused that and why did we see that. Probably a bunch of different things. Yes, yeah, we're pretty much following provincial stats. So sticking to the auxiliary unit. Auxiliary had a very busy summer. June was Pride Month, so our auxiliary took place with raising the Pride flag. We also had the Pride Parade. Pride Parade this year, I think, was a much larger event than anybody had predicted with the organizers. No issues at all with it as far as it went, but we were pretty glad to see it was very well attended and it went off very well. They worked very closely with the city. They actually had farmers market area set aside for them, so there was music, and it was a very good day. We had auxiliary. All of us were down there. It actually went all very well, so we're pleased to see. And we'll be meeting with some of the organizers just as some tips for next year to make it even more streamlined. The auxiliary assisted Jason Cranny at school bicycle safety event, and in for a month we had 91.5 hours of donated auxiliary time. Sort of that big last page of that one, big loss for the unit is Dave Barber. It's finally put his hat up just as retirement. Dave, as you know, has been a fixture here for a couple of years. He's been haven't been accosted by Dave during the Christmas food drive. You obviously don't shop in sound, but Dave just got to the point where you're catching up with him. There's no particular reason. They just felt it was time. Dave stays with us with doing our car washing here on Sundays. Still have a connection with him, but a big loss for us. We're really going to have to do something to get somebody to fill those shoes, particularly Christmas time when food drives on. Month of July, 8 auxiliary ride-alongs. They participated in the House Yard Sale in the River District, Emancipation Festival, picnic at Harrison Park. Handed out some swag to the kids, 85.5 hours of volunteer time in July. Finally, in August, two important community events. I'm going to talk a little bit more when I get into core about the event that we ran with Orthodon Reconciliation Garden. It's a very good part with us in that. And they've also involved in some spectacular kids, 99 volunteer hours. By the auxiliary, do that one. We'll move on to core quickly. Core, and particularly Constable Martin, has been doing a lot of work down at the Reach Center. There's really been a farm forge there. As you'll remember from last month, that was where the prisoner meal thing is originated from. So that's been working out very well. We have a plan to actually start bringing, so Reach, as part of their programming, does food preparation, that sort of thing. So they're actually going to be bringing a cart and a couple of residences here, I think weekly.
Starting next Wednesday.
Starting next Wednesday, so we're giving them access to the building and do all of our employees and sell brownies and that sort of thing. It's been really good. Constable Martin's been assisting with delivering human trafficking curriculum to some grade 9 classes here in town, doing some career pitches to our OSPSB students. Foot patrol locations are listed there, in quarter hours of foot patrol and community events that were participated in World Festival Pride Parade, the Bishop Heritage Day, the Heritage Classic cross tournament, and Saltwater Run. They do get used on occasion to assist CIB when they have some large cases. That's been listed there. Again, as we mentioned, the CIB report, they took on the Agricultural Society graffiti and basically dealt with that through the cameras and managing to corner these that were responsible. We've had some dealings with the HARB and the liquor inspector that have made some improvements down there. That'll move on to July. We've been working with Grey County Housing for the month of July to assist with 14th Street West addresses from work, having some difficulties. Working on some encampment sites. They were making regular appearances at the encampments, trying to direct some of those individuals to further services. A lot of July was spent planning August's Wimpendon event that will cover up as we get to August. Community events, Canada Day, off the street summer kickoff party, Camp Day for district importance, and community barbecue at Conrad Park. I want to talk a little bit about that. So what we started doing this year, as part of our big grant that we got, the $1 million+ I built into that a discretionary outreach and education fund. So what they've been doing all through the summer is we have our Yippee students. We plan a pop-up barbecue in each of the neighborhoods. We only spend about $100 on hamburgers, and that's comes out of the grant money. Our Yippee students go around a day or two before, they put flyers in everybody's mailbox, take them over to the park, pull our barbecue over there. We have Yippee students, our core officers, everybody gets to come out, put some burgers, get to meet the local officers. Hugely successful. We've done them before, they're all listed in here at a bunch of different parks. We're also using that and will be for some degree to benefit some of our United Way, Reach, that sort of thing. We're doing those barbecues where we can take $100 worth of basically grant money, convert it into usually $700 or $800 worth of donation to those agencies just by being there and selling some burgers. So that's been a hugely successful movie night going this summer. So we'll continue that next year as well. We have that same amount of money built into each of the 3 years of the grants.
It was interesting, some of the locations were picked because we're not up in those neighborhoods at all. And people were very receptive and asking, why are you here? And the comments were, we don't get up here very often. We don't have an opportunity to expose. With exposure, you don't have an opportunity to come talk to us. It also created a lot of community, sense of community within the neighborhoods because people were out talking to their neighbors and talked to them since before COVID. And, somebody came over and said, this is the best thing that you've done. And, just getting everybody out talking again. And so there's that community, that sense of community and involvement as well. It really was missing that was some great benefit for that.
Yeah, St. Julian Park, Comrade, Elm Street, several others that are listed here. It's been really successful. Just one notation there that just in regards to the exercise burns, that was the when the kids were picked up, they were sent to the YMCA program for that. Been working with, it's probably where there's a number of new Ukrainian families that have been brought into town and housed at the Rice House. Quarter's been assisting because there've been some problems with the park across the street. Safety issues, particularly the fact now to Ukrainian families, so they're working very closely with Jason and those families just to try and work on some of those improvements. So I think we're there. Work with the city a little bit to change some of the hours with respect to the park and gazebo and other things that made some great improvements. So I'm happy with the result of that. Of course, actually, I don't know if we covered this before, maybe the chiefs, yes, we have. Of course, been working quite a bit with CTRE Productions on promotion video. It's going to turn out really good. I've seen some of the early footage of the things that they've collected, including our.
I'm sorry, can we back up? Yeah. Sorry. I had some questions about the problem areas.
Mhm. So,
Like this came out at a city council meeting, gazebo in particular. We're upset that this was 2 weeks ago. People were upset that a sign was posted saying no sleeping here. Or something. Is that police or bylaw?
That was the city that posted that, but ultimately, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, chief, that was a pre-existing bylaw. There's only bylaw passed. Somebody had posted that this is the bylaw.
So what is your knowledge of what was at the gazebo?
In terms of.
Like, was there mattresses, couches? Do you have any idea?
So we had a report that somebody was doing some form of drugs, either cocaine or fentanyl off the railing in the gazebo. We've had a number of bathroom-related issues in the area around the gazebo, and we've had an individual or two that have been in aggressive shouting matches with some of the local residents. Some sort of a mental health kind of thing, but it has become had become a bit of a overnight sleeping accommodation,
And
which was probably never what
Okay.
it was.
And we have thick skin on council, but we were attacked by one delegate nation saying it was heartless to block it off from the homeless and so forth. Just to let you know that. A more general question, and I'm going off council, so I guess it's something I can't participate in, but is there, and I'm looking at these other issues too, the Caseros, and we got Second Avenue East, I'm looking at the problem areas here. Is there any sense, and I'll defer to the mayor as well, to a special meeting at some point in time where bylaw, police, city council, communities just try to think about a template, a standard approach, 3 strikes you're out in terms of loitering? Is there any point to a special meeting where this stuff can get talked about? And so we thrash through what it means to have an aesthetic downtown core and what it means to manage a population, which at times is challenging. I'm just raising issues. And have others, like you just said, you came up from Kitchener the other day. I get that it's an issue everywhere. Are cities having special meetings to try to town hall this somehow? Best practice. I'm just raising the issue. You know where it comes from.
It's a problem everywhere, and I'm not sure that we have it as bad as some as other areas. I'm not saying that's good or bad, or it's an excuse or anything like that. I'm just pointing that out. But I think that is the whole. What you're suggesting is exactly the whole drive behind community safety and well-being planning. Is that it's not a police issue, it's not a bylaw issue, it's everybody's issue together. Housing's issue, it's all those support agencies, all those community service agencies that come together. And that's the whole drive behind the community safety and well-being plan, is that look at this is a problem that we have to study and work at as a group. So that community safety well-being plan group and the tables that are associated with that are the perfect location where that discussion should take place. And that's the hope that as it moves from planning to implementation, and that's the stage they're at now because the community safety wellbeing plan's been developed, that's the next step. And so they're using the situation table for acute risk as one format with people that are difficult to provide services to. But that's the location, that's the forum, and that's how that should be.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just 2 nights ago, we had a protest, fine, people are out of protest at council, and it just seemed incoherent. And I question whether some people know that there's this forum going on and we're gonna move to something better. I don't know. I mean, maybe the election's a good time to discuss this. I don't know. But the perception out there is that just things happen and there's no, you know what I'm saying?
I think the problem that you run into, and that's why it's been mandated by the province through community safety wellbeing planning, is that everybody says, oh, well, that's a municipal level problem, that's a provincial level problem, that's a federal level problem. And really, nobody's going to solve it on their own. Everybody has to work together in order to bring resources that you need to discover what the solution is for that problem.
Craig, do you know who the representatives from the city are on?
Yes, Pam Colton takes part in the city, from the city. Councillor Kepke, I believe, is still on there. She was on it from the beginning when she was here on the board. We have representatives on the committee as well, on the board. So yeah, there are a number of individuals who participate.
Do we have raw data yet, or is that the group to ask? Data on basic things like how many actual homeless people are there on any given evening? What
Isn't there a
percentage of
report?
people move from other areas going south? Like, do we have actual numbers on this?
There is a, and I'm just aware of it through my connections through that. There is a point in time every year that county does a
Count.
count.
Maybe I'll talk to it. It was yelled out the other night, 500 people are homeless.
I don't believe the point in time count was that,
Yeah.
but, and it's just a snapshot.
Yeah. Thanks.
I'm always given the analogy that unfortunately the police occupy the bottom rung of the ladder and there's a lot of rungs up above. A lot of all those rungs, they get to the bottom rung and all rungs fall, so we're the ones that end up. The agency of last resort for a lot of these things, and as you said, we'd like to not be involved with a lot of it, but when it lands in our lap like this, we're the ones that get the phone call because of the 24/7 operation. Dealing with a lot of things, probably would be much better dealt with through many other organizations if they ever get this. It's the end result of it.
So complex. You guys are working with mental health and was the Y in Peter County, I guess, now getting out to see these people and make sure they're okay. And I think that gets lost.
I mean, some of it, especially being campus and that sort of thing, there are a number of services available, but there are a certain number of people that are interested in the services. So there are some housing options and that sort of things. Jason and Cora work with people trying to steer towards that, but there's nothing to actually say you shall go. So it's been pretty frustrating. So where we at here? Last report reports. So the big one. The Moikwadong Youth Council held, this is something that we wanted to do for several years now. And the idea, shut down due to quarter, but, COVID, sorry. We basically, Corey did a great job here. We had a big day, August 24th, and it was basically a partnership with Moikwadong, the local Indigenous community. And the whole idea was to start getting a lot of the Indigenous youth to actually understand their spaces behind the uniforms. We had a big day up at the Reconciliation Park or Garden. We had canoes brought in, we had a bouncy house, we had a barbecue up there. We worked with the Moikwadong Indigenous Youth Council to have profile games and that sort of thing. We started off the day with a sunrise ceremony. I was really, really nervous because it wasn't a few of us and a few elders and nobody else. And I was kind of, we didn't really know who was coming. And then by an hour or two later, I think we had just a couple hundred people there. It was a huge success. Still growing the hair back on my fingers from the barbecue the whole day. She was, I think we went through at least 200 burgers there. We had our officers pretty much all day. We had dozen canoes there, so we had a bunch of different officers grabbing the kids and they went up and down the Pottle Tony, around the Bouncy Castle. Our core officers actually went up to Canadian Tire, talked to the owner of Canadian Tire, he donated a couple bikes, and a couple kayaks, so those kind of went out to, happy to see is people that needed them the most there once the contest. It was just a hugely successful day, and I'm referring to it as the first annual because we're actually doing that every year. And yeah, there were some connections made there with the officers and some kids that are, it was, can't say enough about it. So huge success. Another one here too of just an invitation kind of work with Florida is 13-year-old girl had a bicycle stolen from the library. Constable Edmondson heard about it, talked to somebody who knows on the sport check and got a donated bicycle there. So the officer that actually did the investigation, the girl was able to present the bike and walk to her to replace her stolen bicycle. So it's those little things I think that make such a huge difference. Worked with the AGCO on a couple of liquor license inspections, 11 3/4 hours of foot patrol downtown. Again, working with the encampments and Parkview Park and St. Julian's Park, with the recipients of neighborhood barbecues throughout August. There's just more information there. We had 16 of our members that showed up and donated the time for that day. Safe and Sound, we attended the barbecue with Safe and Sound as well for International Overdose Awareness Day. We had to use Constable Martin to backfill for Detective Hartley in Emhart for a number of days while he was on holidays. Have a little bit more information there just in regards to the Rice House and work that they were doing with Ukrainian families, increased patrols, and we also did a bit of work at the request of Grey County with respect to the rail trail. We're having some issues with ATVs down the rail trail getting past the barricades. So our core officers put some time into that as well on Saturdays to work on some education. Any questions? That's 3 months worth of reports.
Thank you, Inspector. Moving on to Inspector Sweeney.
Okay, the same as Dave, lots of information in these reports. I'm gonna condense it as much as I can. So collision statistics, we had 45 collisions in June, 40 in July, and 54 in August. That's up over last year, I believe. It's due to the number of people that have decided to get out and travel and are more comfortable moving out. The bulk of those collisions in each month were on the east side and parking lots. And the collision reporting center continues to help us out with the investigation of those collisions and reporting. And they do roughly half or less than half of our collisions. That concludes the collision report, unless there's any questions. Moving on to community services, Jason and his crew were very, very busy through the summer months. Jason gets some help during the summer months and through the Yippee grant. Is able to hire some local students. His students this year were a newcomer student by the name of Sham, and he also had summer students Maddie, Ella, and Taylor helping him out, as well as a Special Olympic ambassador, Matthew, who has been a great help to us. So just some of the highlights from community services during the summer. Jason continues to be part of the Grey Bruce Immigration Partnership Committee. He's been assisting with the newcomers from Ukraine. He's been delivering human trafficking awareness education program in partnership with St. Mary's back in June. Did a community barbecue at Alexander School. Was involved with the Emancipation Festival, Canada Day celebrations, the Reach Center barbecues, the Alpha Street Resource Inside Out program, which has been very, very successful out there, and some very positive interactions with our officers and residents at Alpha Street. Also, two very successful recent events that we had, the Wheels and Ride event that was down at the market in August. That was planned with Vivica from the planned in the River District, and an event to have youth down and participate in a bike rodeo there, also have a barbecue, and senior staff and community services and the core unit were also involved in an overdose awareness day event at Safe and Sound, where we had a barbecue and had an opportunity to interact with some of the people down there. Some of the presentations that were delivered by community services over the summer. There was presentations on human trafficking, elder abuse. There was a community forum there at the library at St. Dominic Savio. There was a bike rodeo hosted, safe internet use at Eastridge School. At the Legion, presentation on elder abuse. At Alpha Street, again, the Inside Out program and bike safety training. At Inglenook Daycare, presentation on street safety. And at Maliquidon, a bike safety program with parents and kids aged 3 to 6 years. And that concludes a summary of the reports from community services. There's no questions, so I'll move on to lost hours of training. In June, we had 11 members report sick or injured for a total of 287 hours. That dropped dramatically in July and August. In July, we had only 3 members with 50 hours, 4 members with 86 hours. In addition to that, we had 7 members that were absent over the 3-month period due to issues with COVID, for a total of 128 hours. We had 3 members on WSIB during this period. 1 received a minor injury at work, returning to full duties right away. 1 on modified duties, and another remains long term. We have 2 members on OSPSB. As far as training, we have 3 members that continue their training dispatch. We had a member take the OBP surveillance course, a member take the search warrant course at the police college. 2 members did their intoxilizer course at the Center for Forensic Sciences. 1 member attended the frontline supervisor course as well. And we had 1 member take the C8 rifle armorers course hosted in the kitchen. Everything for lost hours of training. Moving on to frontline patrol, we had 410 highway traffic charges during the 3 months, 43 compliance notices, 215 cautions or warnings, 23 liquor license act charges, 382 criminal code charges, and 395 hours of foot patrol. We had 72 on-duty ride checks, 3 provincially funded ride programs with other area police services at the Durham Homecoming event, Civic Long Weekend in Hanover, and the Music Fields event in Lucknow. We also hosted a Joint Forces ride program that coincided with the Salmon Spectacular that was successful. During our on-duty ride programs, we had 1,479 vehicle drivers checked, and over the 3 months, we had 10 drivers charged with impaired driving. That concludes my reports.
Any questions for the inspector? Moving on to reports from Director of Civilian Services and
I mentioned to Inspector Clooney this morning that I greatly look forward to a time in the very near future. I hope when Director Clooney is able to
do our own report.
Director of deliver her own reports. In terms of all board bylaw reports, there really is nothing to see over 3 months in terms of anything other than the regular ins and outs of both taxi and adult entertainment licenses. Those are all looked after by PANDOT, and they just tend to be cyclical in terms of renewals and that sort of thing. So there's nothing out of the ordinary in any of those. As far as reports go, you see the year-over-year indicators there in terms of July of 2022, June 2022, 48 persons in custody, 1,217 hours of special constable time. Move to July report, 60 persons in custody heard by audio, again, about 1,000 hours of special constable time. All of those hours are relatively consistent with the year before in 2021. And for August, 71 persons in custody by audio, and again, 1,060 hours consistent with the year before. So not a lot that is different or outstanding. Court operations there. And as far as records go, we always report to you. We've managed for the last couple of years. We've kept all of our background checks down to a week or two for, which is actually a very good turnaround time. And so just looking at the year over year for pretty much each of the months this year through the summer, we pretty much doubled our bulk stations over the year before, more or less, which is always a good news story because we generate revenue from those searches. So that's all good news. Absent of any questions on that, that's Director from me.
Thank you, Inspector. Moving on to a report from Director of Corporate Services. Jeff.
Yeah, so some interesting numbers as far as calls for service. At the first part of this year, we started to see a trend where we were seeing a decrease in the number of calls for service over last year, which was a bit of a relief. See that trend as year after year, we've seen a steady increase. However, this changed over the summer. In June, we had 1,592 calls for service, which was up 2.8% over the same time last year. In July, we again saw another increase of 1,678 calls, which was almost a 6% increase over the same time last year. And then in August, we're up to 1,745 calls for service, which was a 19% increase over the same time last year, which brings us to another rise in the overall year to date, with a 4% increase over 2021 in our calls for service. So unfortunately, the trend continues that our calls for service are increasing this year. That's everything for Suzanne.
Thank you, Inspector. Moving on to item number 13, report from Director of Information Technology Services, and that's back to Jeff.
So yeah, for Director Hill on IT in June, the IT branch worked on the Huron County RFP, security audit work for West Gray. They were also working on the card scan identification system, Gray County radio system, and onboarding and fire, and the next gen 911 solutions for the Arctic police agencies. In July, there's ongoing work with the Metro Links mapping project, Fort Lakes mapping project, next gen 911 progress, and back at site plans for the end of October. eHub application launch for the port, For go live with the Grey County radio system, and Huron County work with a October 15th date to go live there, which is a tight timeline with 12 locations in the county in 60 days. In August, they continue with Huron County work, Next Gen 911, installation and launch of new outdoor cameras for the OSPS building. The West Spray security audit was completed, and the Saugeen Shores Police Service mobile workstation install project. IT have been kept busy with the expansion of the dispatch map, with the addition of 9 fire halls, which is an extremely short time launch. 9 days from bid closing. And our staff has been also assisting Grey County contractors with fire departments. Mapping projects aside from our own, our Metrolinks, other optic agency maps. Mapping for other agencies has been slowed this year due to the large number of OSPS dispatch projects. And the IT unit will be throughout Grey Bruce and Huron counties for the next 2 months working on fire department and police projects. That concludes the IT report.
Thank you, inspection. Maybe I just ask this question. Go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted one comment that I don't think we mentioned it before. So the, oh, thanks, Kate. I don't think we mentioned before the card scan that they're talking about. So what that is we're taking on a new business venture. When Dryden was providing that service until they closed up in February, and we bought some equipment from them. And what it is that the other agencies, when there's a need to print manually rather than use their live scan equipment, they can print on the old paper copies and roll ink and do that. But there's no way of entering that. It's just that project, the hard copy document into the live scan equipment without this card scan unit. So we're doing work for about 10 or 12 other police services, and after purchasing that equipment, we provide that for service or fee, obviously, and one of our injured officers is trained on doing that, so that they do that while they're doing light duties in the station. So it's a win-win.
Drilling for oil in the back parking lot this fall.
Just maybe was included, but I wonder if going back to July was a Rogers outage. And I'm just wondering if there's been anything put in place to mitigate or prevent that from happening again, or none.
So all of our systems are redundant through different service providers. So there were no downtime for any of the communications equipment. So if we work with another agency and we dispatch for them, everything coming back here comes through systems. So we didn't have any loss of communication. We did have to go out and get some cards from a competitor, because we were using Rogers almost exclusively for our own internal communications, but that's been remedied and we got that looked after. So we were back up within a short period.
There
It was
was
that morning we were back up.
there was a minor setback with our cell phones, and we had that remedy probably within an hour and a half. We were at a plan in place, and we were operational with that. And, in the future, we'll be able to bounce back between the two services and those areas.
Good to hear. Good stuff. Alrighty, moving on to item number 14, financial reports from Chief.
So the monthly report for August, just provided the one just because it was easier. You'll see that we're just below, we're around 1% below the 0.95% below our year-to-date targets. Just to highlight on that, since that time, since the end of August, we've also met with city finance and done a forecast out at the end of the year. Originally, there were some current concerns there, but went over that with Kate earlier this week. Board Chair joined us as well. Thank you for coming in. We're on track to be within 1% of the budget to the end of the year as well, with a small variance and just under $80,000. So just some highlights though, some of the costs now includes the payments at the end of 2022. The forecast the end of 2023 has been at the end of the month, the year has been reviewed. There's nothing of concern. There are some significant OT wages and communications, staffing issues, and COVID issues. And obviously we're looking for new staff. So if anybody's watching this video, we'll be hiring. We're over in we're over in OT there. The courts, just to highlight, it's been higher courts cost up till now because we hired and trained 4 new members. So that time that they were spent training goes into the regular hours. And the courts are opening up, and that's expanding coverage. And because the grant funding covers 2 years previous, it actually will start to affect us now moving forward. So we'll have to watch that moving forward in budgeting for 2023. And that's it. Unless there are any questions. On to, just let me find my page. On to the outstanding accounts. 72. And the amount of $34,050.59. Promotion.
Do we want to do individual motions or do you want to do one?
Oh, we can do it. Yeah, okay.
Make it less tight.
Okay, so for the period of June 1st to June 30th, $34,050. For the period of July 1st to July 31st, $83,263.90. And the period of August 1st to August 31st, amount of $39,077.
So I think that comes to a total of $156,391.52 for 3 months. Garth, thank you. Ian, thank you. All in favor?
Well done, guys.
Report on the Chiefs activities for June, some highlights, the flag raising at City Hall and OSPS for the pride flag, the number of things with Liquidon. There's a lot of time spent on RFPs for dispatch and NG 911 meetings. I was away at the OSPSB zone meeting and annual conference. Policy and procedure review that continues. We took a break over the summer. We're almost finished with that. We'll do an update later. E-waste sharing circle, pride parade, all of those events. Some time off as well. Significant time spent in hiring members. July, some time off as well. Number of hiring interviews, community photography up at Alpha Street. Optic strategic plan, working with them. Number of community events. MPART meeting, we're looking at a review of the program as well. Promotional video, some work getting that ready to go, and then the taping in September, and the Emancipation Festival July, August. More time off. Meeting with the executive director for Rivers Child and Family Services on some issues related to disclosure and some issues relating to protocols with police service that are expired, need to be renewed. PAO had a hero award today for Corey Fernando. Some members were present down at the arena pad down at the Bayshore. It's a great day for that. The Grey County radio system, a number of days. I was at the CACP annual conference and committee meetings in Quebec City. For travel time was 5.5 days. Intended to reach Cafe, and now that's coming to us. So that would be a nice thing to come next week. Hiring interviews, all budget meetings, budget preparation with our own staff here, and then the overdose awareness day, safe and sound, that was run in cooperation with the Rivers Health Unit. So they've supplied the food, we supplied the barbecue, and those resources to cover this. It was August. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving forward then, the report on the crime severity index and police reported crime statistics in Canada. So it was a little bit later this year, but on August 2nd, Statistics Canada released their 2021 police reported crime statistics in Canada. There's some information that's been provided as well about how they calculate UCR, or Uniform Crime Reporting information. And if you look, we're always going up, and this year it's nice to say we've decreased both rank and severity across the board. And I think it's significant when you look at that, that we did have a homicide last year, and the homicide would usually spike and cause an increase in crime severity index, but it was the actual drop would have been much more significant if we not experienced that homicide. So some good news there. And I'm not sure that it can all be attributed to, but certainly having a proactive police response in the community it avoids a lot of those incidents, a lot of those crises that we end up responding to. So like I say, it's all the core unit, it's all the functions of having those officers available, that officer availability to deal with those problems, but I'm certain that's a good portion of it. And then with the expansion of the core unit, I'm sure through the grant process with the province, I'm sure that will assist that moving forward.
Any questions for Chief Ambrose on the stats? Hearing none. Might move on to other items in new business. And the first item is a review and update to the adult entertainment bylaw. And I guess a number of our bylaws are on file at the courthouse here in Owen Sound. And staff up there recently contacted Pam Dodd to provide them with any recent updates that we had to the bylaws. And in reviewing the bylaws, the adult entertainment bylaw, Pam noticed that 2009 there were notes made on the file and indicating that there were some proposed changes had probably been contemplated back then. Unfortunately, there was no paper trail anywhere to say why the notes made or anything like that. And the notes back then indicated a proposed change to the licensing fee from $2,000 annually to $2,000 every 2 years. From what we could find, and Kayla worked on this too, there was no evidence that it had ever gone any further. There was no notes, no minutes, nothing on it. So the reason I bring this to the board now is to confirm that there are no changes required to the current adult bylaw 2008-03, and the fees will remain as they are, the $2,000 annually. From the board? Yep.
Yeah,
Well, that's the other side too. But somebody had written a lot of notes that they were contemplating making changes. Should we have a motion that says just that there's no changes to this bylaw right now, or just leave it to we've minute it that we've noted it?
No, I'll move that to note that we've reviewed it and considered it and don't see the need for any changes right now.
Okay.
Then you've got something on the record that's.
Joe, thank you. Okay. The next item is update on the progress of the bylaw policy review plan. And oh, I'm sorry. Yes, thank you. All in favor? I didn't have it written down. As you may recall, Chief mentioned about working with Dave Preston on doing the policies. So I think that was started last summer sometime, 2021, I guess, actually. And so they're just wrapping that up right now. And Dave's ready to start the next phase of the project, was to start working on the board's policies and bylaws and such like that. So we've talked, Gail and I've talked to, and Chief have talked to Dave, and he's going to start working on that. Dave is a perfect resource for that because he used to work for Solgen at one time. He knows, he's got a broad scope of what bylaws are needed specifically for us, specifically the Solicitor General's office, and make sure that everything is consistent across the spectrum. It'll probably be into next year before Dave finishes it. And what we'll do is we'll provide you monthly updates as to the progress and where we're at, and if there's any new changes or deletions, if that happens. I also wanted to ask if there's anyone on the board that wanted to sit on the bylaw review committee, rather than just Kayla and I and the chief. Anyone else want to volunteer for something?
Hard to make a commitment to that.
Yeah, I know, I understand that. So
I guess join until November 7th, whatever the magic 15th, whatever the date is.
yeah, the last council meeting.
7th is the last council meeting, but think it changes over mid-November instead of first of December.
All right, so we'll keep that open up that we're not excluding anyone from participating.
And just an update on the policing side of that, since we're talking about it, the procedures. So the board has to have a policy in place that we will have something, and then our procedures. So there are just over 200 of them. We're down to the last 4 or 2. I believe it is. We had 6, and I think we're down to 2 now. It's a long process, but certainly well needed process. There are many that haven't been updated. They weren't signed by the original chief, but they weren't signed by the last chief either, or this one. So there are a number that needed some updating, and so we're almost done that, and they're getting sent out to everybody. So things started finding that. We've got an IT solution brought in so that it tracks that everybody acknowledges that they've read them and received them and have reviewed them. So long project, took a little bit longer. It's time consuming to go through and sit down and go through every one of those procedures line by line and word by word, but certainly well worth the investment. And it will be really a huge benefit as they implement the new Safety Policing Act, and everything has to be updated to at least have it ready to get updated, because we were nowhere near that before.
And these policies aren't 2 or 3 pages long, like some of them are.
Just 15, 40, you know, so they're like,
Times 200, that's a lot of pages to use.
You're not selling your call for volunteers or.
Yeah, I guess not. If it'd be quiet, so stop it right now. All right. Since we've completed everything on the agenda, I'm going to terminate the public meeting. And our next meeting will be on Wednesday, October 26th. Thank you, everyone. We'll take a 5-minute break, and then we'll start back on the second half of the confidential or closed session.